Hello YouTube, Damo_23 here and welcome back to a brand new video on the YouTube channel. In today's video we have the team, the draft that will be in for game week number 1 of Fantasy Premier League this year. This has been a video that has been inspired by my Discord. We have been discussing through all the Football Manager content about what we have been doing for our game week 1 drafts. And as you can see, we have a lot of updates, etc. going through the Discord. So I thought, why not make a video about my thoughts for Game Week 1? And who knows if this is something that you guys like and enjoy. I might just make it into a 38 little game week, episode sort of series. With that being said, if you do enjoy the content, give it a like, do subscribe to the YouTube channel. As always, links are down below to watch me play Football Manager. Obviously, this is a Football Manager channel, and of course to my poker channel on Instagram, as I do play poker semi-professionally as well. Let's get into the gist of the episode. This is draft like 782 for me, and it's probably an exaggeration, but I have done quite a number of drafts. Out of that 782, I've settled on this one for now. I don't think it's really going to change before game week 1, but it will always depend on the Community Shield, which will be filmed tomorrow. In terms of why should you listen to me, there's no real good reason, to be fair. I actually am someone that never really took Fantasy Premier League serious. I really wish I did, because I've done it for the last couple of seasons. I did have a really good year when Spyros went ballistic in the Prem, being a Liverpool fan. But the last 2 years are the 2 years that are really, for me, are of note. 2 years ago, I found out that there was paid leagues. Me and my friends joined a few paid leagues, and playing poker semi-professionally, did a lot of my deep dive into making my fantasy game a lot better. Finished 73k in the world. I thought it was a fantastic year. Last year, we sold Haaland in game week 3 through to game week 6. I think got 2 hat-tricks in that time. Put me out to about 5 mil in the world. I then went on to finish in the top 30k in the second half league after the World Cup. So top 30k finish in that league, which saw me come from all the way from about 5 mil to 335k. So I'm very, very happy with that. And what it meant in 21-22, I had just over a break-even year in terms of in paid leagues. Even though last year I had a worse wank, I won more leagues than not, or finished in the top 3 of leagues that paid top 3. Made more money last year playing fantasy than I did in the season I have made 73k, and this year I am in a few paid leagues as well. So let's get into the team. I'm going to go by midfield defense, midfield, and striker position. And then I am a member on Fantasy Football Hub. I am an Ultra team member. I have currently sent this draft in to be rated by my fantasy coach for the year to see what they say. And look, it is a draft that contains Mohamed Salah. I will speak about him in a second. Most notable in the outs, obviously, the news that Jesus is injured and Cuckoo now has a knock, and that has changed my plans into what we have done with the team and how we've distributed the funds. So I want to speak about this draft because I think it allows us to do some cool stuff. In goals, I think Onana is the best option. I think if you're looking at a 4.5 mil keeper, you're not 100% sure Steele's going to start. Flecken's had a very poor pre-season, for those that aren't aware, as well. I think Johnston's really, really good and underrated. But yet again, I think if you're going to go into the Palace defence, you're going to go Anderson and Torres, because Anderson and Aston Villa Power Torres switch in and out really well. So with that being said, I think that leaves you in a spot where you cover off the United defence. It allows you not to have to spend money on Luke Shaw, and Onana with the pass completion obviously is going to be fantastic for bonus points. The back four, the back 5, if you say, because you got Baldock, who, look, any of the 4.0s, I think Kabore probably could sneak into my team. I think Baldock's the most aggressive. There you are. But, it's the standard one. Gabriel and Stupian in everyone's drafts, and it's important to not be too differential. And, when one of your differentials is Mohamed Salah, who's only owned by 23% of the game, and he's arguably the best fantasy asset outside of Haaland, you're pretty happy. But yeah, obviously Ben Chilwell, thinking of Luke Shaw, apologies. It is late, it is after 11:30, I've just come back from the movies. Ben Chilwell is only owned by 10%, but I do think in long term he will be owned higher, and I'll explain that in the second part of this video. But I think Gabriel and Estupiñán locked, nailed. From what we've seen in pre-season, Chilwell has been great. Look, being a massive Liverpool fan, as you can tell from up here, I've watched a lot of our pre-season. At one point I had Darwin in my draft, him not starting against Bayern, even though I think he would start against Bournemouth. I think he won't start against Chelsea, so do I really want to ride him in the 1 week where he's going to be on the bench? And then also knowing Trent's role and what Trent's been doing and how bad we've looked down our right-hand side in pre-season defensively, I think Chilwell getting in those half spaces, bombing on, is probably going to get a score against us, not going to lie. So I do think Chilwell's someone that you can start in game week 1. A lot of people benching him as their first sub. I think there's points waiting to happen there, and obviously long-term Chelsea's fixtures are great. So I think those three are nailed. Estupiñán for the first 3 weeks. We have a plan after game week 3 for Estupiñán as well, but he looks pretty good. Midfield though, let's just talk about the ones that are nailed. For me, Saka's not left the draft. He's nailed. He's Arsenal's best attacking option. Out of everyone that gets rotated or lack of minutes, Saka generally plays some decently good minutes and is pretty nailed to at least start. He's also on penalties, even though he's missed one in pre-season. I have no qualms that as long as Jorginho's not on the part, that he would be taking it. And we know how good of an asset he is. If you expected the guy to be 9.5 mil and he comes in 8.5 mil, you're really not going to be complaining about picking him and keeping him in your drafts. For me, Bruno outscores Rashford this year. Bruno used to be a very expensive premium on FM. This is a guy that scored over 200 points in seasons. This is a guy, when people finish chances, will get a lot of points on Fantasy Premier League. Stays on the park for 90. Don't get me wrong, I think between Rashford and Bruno it's pretty close. That 0.5 mil for me is quite important to have in the bank, just flexibility reasons. And I do think Rashford moving to the left is going to make Rashford a better footballer, but that might take away some of his goal threat. And with that being said, I think then you may as well look at Bruno going, if people finish their chances, this guy's going to get about 180 to 200 points. Not bad for an 8.5 mil midfielder. So I've gone with Bruno for that reason. Those two have not really left any of my drafts. Same with Mbeumo, because of the fact that he's on corners, penalties, pretty talismanic. I think out of all the 6.5 mils, he's got the most ways to get points. Where Mitoma's a great asset in himself and is in this draft for me. He's the one that's come out, and where Eze's got probably a little bit more ways to points than Mitoma does. Eze doesn't play in as good as a side. So for me, I think Mbeumo has the best of all worlds. I think after Spurs, he has great fixtures. Being an Australian, knowing Ange, they'll probably concede on the opening day as well, Spurs, and it probably will be Mbeumo that gets the points. So straight away, Saka, Bruno, and Mbeumo all ticked. Now, Mitoma's one that's been in and out of my squad, and I know he's very, very highly owned. My thing with Mitoma is, I think for the first 3 game weeks he's great, and then after that you really need to sell. If I didn't have Salah, he is Foden. And like in my original draft that I had before the injuries, it would have been Rashford, it would have been Jesus, and it would have been Foden. Because I think Foden's nailed, and if you have Foden, I'm really jealous of you. But I think dropping down to Mitoma to allow for a little bit of funds at the 0.5 in the bank with this draft and to cover off the ownership of him is great. And it also allows me to move to Diaby down the track. And with Diaby, obviously, he, I think, will, after getting embedded in that Villa team, is going to be one of their best players. So that's the midfield 5. And then on up front, you got Mbama on the bench, because I think he's going to play from West Ham, as it seems, not start off the bench a lot. Haaland, obviously captaincy. I am captaining Salah in game week 2, and this is the reason why I've gone for Salah, is if Jesus isn't available and you don't think Nkunku is going to be available, then you got a decision of, do I spread the funds around and go for Watkins, Darwin, who may not start, obviously Gakpo and Jota would be, whatever, or do you get Salah in and then take a punt one of these cheaper strikers? And I've decided to go down that route. It allows me to captain Salah in game week 2, because if you're going to win FPL, you need to find weeks where you can captain against the crowd and become out ahead. And no better week than Liverpool against Bournemouth, and Salah surely won't miss out for a second year in a row. And Joe Pedro's a big signing for Brighton. Like, lots of money. He's looked fantastic in pre-season, and I think he's going to start. Now, the beautiful thing is he's 5.5 mil. So for me, being 5.5 mil, I do think he's the sort of option that, in those harder fixtures you bench, and if he's not getting starts, you just put him as the first sub. I also think that over time, if he's not starting now, he'll get embedded into the squad and be locked long-term down the track. And then lucky last is, this guy is pretty good and looks amazing in the positions he does get into position for during pre-season for Brighton. And he's looked very good. I even think if he plays 30 minutes or so against Luton, he probably could find a way to a return or two. And I do think over the 3 fixtures that he will get good minutes. It'll either be 30 minutes or so off the bench, or it will be starts. And, if Joe Pedro's on the park for Brighton with the firepower around with Mitoma, March, Ferguson, Welbeck, and Ciso, who I think Pedro and Ciso are in direct competition for each other. I think Pedro is going to get the nod. Then I think they're both very good. And what it allows you to do is get Mohamed Salah in. So you need to do that in a way that allows you to have funds. I guess if you could go 4-5-1 and then have for another 4.5 mil like Archer, but you're not going to get any sort of minutes. At least with Joe Pedro, he's too big of a side in that he's going to not sit at Brighton on the bench and not do nothing. Undav's gone. I think this is a very good pick as well. So what that means for the team is that what it looks like in game week 1. Levi Colwell was my pick because of the injuries to Chelsea's defence, shows that he will be nailed. Now, he won't play against Liverpool, but when that fixture swing comes in, that's where you can start to play him over the likes of a Joe Pedro and limit that risk of rotation of Joe Pedro. Because if Joe Pedro's first on your bench and doesn't start, you don't care. And if Colwell and Chilwell have easy fixtures, I think in game week 3, if we're moving to Fantasy Football Hub, in game week 3, I think Chilwell was going to get transferred in a lot. So if you look at the team on Fantasy Football Hub, it's a 95% rating. If I played around with it, I could get it a bit higher, obviously, as well. I still think Joe Pedro will get more than the points that's on the board. Game week 2, obviously, you roll. And in game week 3, this is what my team would look like. Stooping fixtures start to run a bit poor. And at that stage, that's where Pedro Porro, for me, is going to come into the team. Because I think with the fixtures, Bournemouth, Burnley and Sheffield is the next 3 to get to game week 6. Spurs' fixtures are a great turn. He's aggressive. I think Ange is going to love him in his system. Fullbacks get very high and inside and look to get at goals with Ange, as you've seen from Celtic. So I think Porro fits the bill. And if his price rises, if he starts, well, I've got 0.5 in the bank, so we'll be able to do what we can do. What it also means by me already having Colwell in the side is I can start him and Chilwell and double up on the Chelsea defence. And while everybody and the man and their dog transfer in is Chilwell, because I think he's going to be the most popular asset to be transferred in game week 3 and his price will jump, I've already got him. And what it also means is while everybody's getting Chilwell's points, as long as Chelsea keep a clean sheet, I get Colwell's points as well. So everyone gets some okay rank game with Chilwell. I get my double, 2 fingers in the pie sort of thing. I get the points from Chilwell, which everyone will get, and I get the points from Colwell, which he would be a very good differential. And as you can see here, after game week 3, without looking into too many transfers, the team performs very well up until a wild card situation. Obviously, that's only one transfer. You can keep only using one. It's a setup that allows me not to have too many hits. And I think that's the biggest thing here, is that's a setup where if I run into any major issues with Joe Pedro, it's 2 moves to go from Salah down to a Rashford or Maddison or a Son, and to go from a Pedro up to even a Watkins, a Jesus, a Darwin, a Nkunku, a Jackson. And I like the flexibility. I feel like that if you have this sort of flexibility in a draft to move, if you have the ability to go differential with the captaincy to still what is a fantastic asset, and you have a team which you're pretty confident most are going to play or at least get you 25 to 35 minutes off the bench, which people think, oh my God, he's not going to get 2 points for playing 90. Yes, I understand. But I still think Joe Pedro against Luton or even Wolves for 30 minutes off the bench is still going to get you a return. Now, you got to also caveat that with, I'm not expecting Joe Pedro to get 200 points this season. For 5.5 mil, if he gets me 130 plus points, I'm pretty happy. It's the same way with Mitoma after game week 4. He's going to go out for Diaby, and that 6.5 mil spot's all about finding a guy that will get you points, or could even be Bowen, at 7. And that's the whole thing. We're not expecting these players to go and be Salah, Haaland, Fernandes to an extent, Saka, but they're going to get you around the 200-point mark. These guys here are just for getting you those points where the fixtures are good, and hopefully they do the job in those fixtures. As you can see, that's my draft. It's a bit different. I have gone very template in the past, and this is probably the most non-template side with Colwell and Salah in there. I just think it's a great differential. I've never seen Salah under 30% ownership ever in FPL, to start a season. So I think there's a really big upside here. This is a team that could wane. It is a team that could flop, and it's a team that could explode. And that's what I like. I think, you can't you can't win FPL in the first few weeks, but you can lose it. And what I mean by that is we could go with some picks to try and make one game that don't work. I even think that even if we did captain Salah, we've got 36 games to get and catch up to people that captain Haaland against Newcastle. If it works out to be that's more. It is what it is. I'm pretty happy with that. I think this has been a very good first or only video of this series. If you have enjoyed, give it a like, to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Big takeaways are, I think Onona's the best keeper. I think Gabriel Estupin's in a must in most drafts. I think Chilwell is probably a must from either Game Week 1 or Game Week 3. And I really do think if you really are going to have Watkins or Darwin or Nkuku or Jesus, I really do think you should find a way to fund it all the way down to a Joe Pedro or Morris to get Salah into your team, because you can move 4-5-1 or 3-5-2 in most game weeks and stay flexible and have a way to transfer out from Salah to spread the funds when players are fit. With that being said, thank you yet again. Catch you guys later. And who knows, let me know in the comment section if you really want to see these videos in the future.